folks, the Filipino P here. And today I hope you'll forgive me for straying so far outside my usual content that you may think I've lost my mind. Well, it's my mind that always gets me in trouble. Because I wonder about things that make other people question what's wrong with me. My friends would say, P, just shut up and eat your rice. Go make a nice video about a pretty waterfall. But I can't help contemplating heavy topics that people don't talk much about. And this is one of them. The subject of morality. The eternal question of right and wrong, good and evil. Morality is a complex tapestry woven from many different fabrics. The fabric of your society, perhaps your religion, the teachings of your parents, your friends, even the ideas you absorb from social media, as well as your innate sense of fairness. Most people believe they have a handle on the subject, but if you look at what they believe, it's often very different from the person standing next to them. Abortion, pornography, gambling, premarital sex, divorce, suicide, stem cell research, polygamy, homosexuality, the death penalty. The list of ethical and moral issues goes on and on. So my question for you today is this. Is there any objective or absolute morality? Or does everyone just make up their own rules as they go along? Maybe the question of right and wrong is totally subjective, and it depends on the particular situation. Maybe there is an objective morality, but it only applies to each individual circumstance and can't be used all the time. Let's find out how deep this rabbit hole goes as we explore what it means to be an ethical person and when you might just be crossing the line. Now, just about everyone considers themselves to be basically moral, not perfect, but generally good. So how can we have so many different opinions on so many issues, even from people within the same religious denominations? Here's a simple example that most of us would accept at face value. Thou shalt not kill. But what about the death penalty? What about a soldier during wartime who's told to kill the enemy? What about a police officer who's trying to stop a mass shooting? What about during a home invasion when you're just protecting your family? Well, of course, then it's different, right? Those are reasonable exceptions where killing is justified. But what about thou shalt not kill? It doesn't mention any exceptions. Are we supposed to just figure those out on our own? Doesn't that prove that right and wrong aren't absolute things? That it does depend on the situation? And that's just talking about the most obvious black and white example. Watch what happens when we get into some gray areas. Now, I think we can all agree that stealing is wrong. But what if your wife is having a life-threatening seizure in the middle of the night? The medicine she needs is locked inside a pharmacy down the street, and you don't have the money to pay for it anyway. There's no time to track down the business owner or even call 911. So is it okay to smash the window and swipe the cure? I think most of us would say yes, but isn't theft immoral? Well, maybe it depends. Let's look at the old trolley car dilemma. You're standing next to a train track. There's a train coming towards you, and there's a lever in front of you that'll divert the train down a different path. If you do nothing, the train will kill 5 people who are tied to the track ahead. If you pull the lever, the train will switch to a different path and kill 1 person lying on the other track. What should you do? Is it reasonable to decide who lives and who dies? Is it just a numbers game where you automatically assume that saving the most lives is the moral thing to do, even if it means actively causing someone else's death by pulling the lever? And what about this? Let's say there's a little girl on the track ahead, but if you pull the lever, you'll crush a 90-year-old woman on the other track. What's the right thing to do? Turn your back and walk away? Or decide that a new life is more valuable than an old one? If you choose to save the young girl and cause the old lady to die, what about thou shalt not kill? No matter what you decide to do, you could defend your actions from a moral perspective. So isn't it just a matter of opinion? What if you're an FBI agent who knows he has 5 minutes to enter a code to disarm a nuclear weapon in the middle of New York City? You've got the terrorist who planted the bomb in custody, but is refusing to give you the code. You have a reasonably good chance of getting the information from the terrorist if you torture him. But torture's always immoral, isn't it? Or maybe the ends justify the means. Can it sometimes be right to do an immoral thing? How about this one? You're walking down a dark alley at night, taking a shortcut to get home to your wife and kids. And ahead of you are 4 big guys who are beating a helpless woman to death. You can either quietly turn around, go back the way you came and call the police. But the woman will be dead and the assailants long gone by the time they arrive. Or you can charge to her defense and hope that maybe your appearance will scatter the bad guys and save the woman. You figure you have about a 50-50 chance of saving her or getting killed yourself. What would you do? Or even more importantly, what's the right thing to do? How much are you morally obligated to risk your own life to save a complete stranger? And what if you could save 10 strangers' lives with only a 20% chance of dying yourself? Where do you cross that line between a right or wrong decision? Well, so far, these examples have been pretty abstract and extreme. You're not likely to find yourself in any of these situations. But what about an example with real-life implications? What about healthcare? Let's say there's a child who's born with an extremely rare disease, and the treatment to keep him alive will cost the healthcare system and the taxpayers $100 a year for the rest of his life. Okay, no problem. It would be totally unethical to deny him treatment in that case. But what if it costs $100,000 a year? What if it costs $1 billion a year? Uh-oh, we obviously can't have that. So the question becomes, what is a life worth? Obviously, somewhere between $100 and $1 billion. But where exactly do you draw the line? And who gets to decide at what point a life just isn't worth saving? Now let's look at a situation even closer to home. One that actually happens. Is it wrong for a woman to post topless in a men's magazine? Is that immoral? If so, why? What if she desperately needs the money for her family to eat, and taking that offer is the only way she has to raise the money quickly? Is it still unethical? Or would it be wrong not to do it? Remember that movie Indecent Proposal, where a rich guy offers a married couple $1 million to borrow the wife for a night? Well, that's basically prostitution. But if all the parties agree, is it immoral? What if the couple needed the money for their son's cancer treatments? Does that make it okay? The woman is doing it to save her son. So once again, can an otherwise immoral act still be the ethical thing to do? If I were in that situation, I don't think I'd say no. And that brings us to another uncomfortable question. Does everyone have a price? Do you have a price? Not necessarily a price in gold, but a situation that would cause you to do almost anything and still consider it to be the moral choice. Someone who says, "Oh, I would never do that," just hasn't needed to badly enough. There are very few things I can think of that someone wouldn't do given the right motivations. So maybe we shouldn't judge people's actions too harshly until we understand their needs. From where we sit, they may be acting immorally, but from their perspective, they're doing the right thing. So what about online scammers? What if they actually are desperate for money for any number of reasons? Does it excuse their lies? Well, you all know how I feel about scamming, and I've hit really hard against it. But what if the girl you were talking to really did need the money for grandma's operation? But she had to lie about being married because you'd say no if you knew the truth about her situation. Is that a good enough reason to scam? Or is there never a good reason to lie? As outspoken as I am about total honesty, if someone shows up at my door with a gun in his hand, asking for the YouTuber named P, I'm gonna lie my ass off and say, I'm sorry, you have the wrong house. I don't know who you're talking about. Obviously, I'm lying. But is it a justifiable lie? Of course I'd say it's a justifiable lie. But is the morality of my actions independent of the reason for it? What if the gun I thought I saw in his hand was actually a thermometer, and the guy was from the health department, sent around the neighborhood on a mandatory program to check everyone's temperatures for the spread of the virus? Does that make a difference? From my perspective, I was just protecting myself. But from his perspective, I'm just a little girl who's overreacting to a non-existent danger by lying to him and preventing him from doing his job. So from the scammer's perspective, maybe she's saving a life. From your perspective, she's a worthless, lying little snake. No, I'm not defending scammers at all. But it certainly makes you wonder, does the reason for the lie excuse the deception sometimes? Now, I certainly don't claim to have all the answers, or even any of the answers. That's why I made this video, to dig for the truth, or at least a deeper understanding of it. And now I'd love to hear from you folks. Do you believe that morality is absolute, objective, subjective? Or do you think there's quite a bit of wiggle room between right and wrong? If you face any moral dilemmas, ones that you feel comfortable talking about, I'd love to hear what they were in the comments section and how you handled them. This could be a lively debate. And although this video was a serious departure from my normal lighthearted content, I promise I'll be back by the weekend with more of my usual antics. And there's also a new outro to this video that hopefully will end things on a happy note. Till next time, folks. If you think about it, I'm kind of like your nurse, attending to your needs and making sure you get a healthy dose of what's good for you in the form of informational and funny videos. After all, laughter is the best medicine. The only thing I ask for my service is that you hit the thumbs up for this video and subscribe to my channel. And while you're recuperating, why not enjoy my other videos too? So, are you ready?